So it's a really, really close election at the top of the ticket between Kamala Harris of the Democrat Party and Donald Trump of the Republican Party. Who will America choose? Will it be the incumbent vice president who will go on to become the first woman president of the US, or will it be Donald Trump to get a second term? But remember, there are many, many down the line races as well for the US Senate, for the US House of Representatives, and also state senates and state houses as well. A person who is of Indian American origin, somebody who's running for the 10th Congressional District in Virginia and is a Virginia State Senator, Suhas Subramanyam is now joining us. Thank you very much, Mr. Subramanyam, for speaking with us. How confident are you? We're just less than a week out from Election Day. How confident are you about not just Democrats and Kamala Harris winning the presidency, winning the White House, but your own election in the 10th Congressional District of Virginia?
Yeah, thank you for having me. As far as my own race, I've just seen a ton of enthusiasm, of support, and really our message is really resonating with people. It's one of trying to unite people and work together across the aisle to get things for our district done. And so that's why the former Republican member of Congress for our area and the current Democratic member of Congress for the area have both endorsed me. We feel like because of that, people understand that I'm someone who'll be a voice for all Virginians. And so we feel good about things in our race. I'm a little less sure on the presidential race. I think that Kamala Harris certainly has some momentum, but Donald Trump is a very popular candidate in those swing states. And I think it'll come down to those 6 or 7 swing states. I think Kamala Harris will win Virginia, where I am, but I'm not sure about the other swing states.
So the Indian American community has largely voted for the Democrats. Historically, they've been far more supportive of the Democrats than the Republicans. In fact, there was a Carnegie survey that had just come out, which suggested that about 60% of the Indian American community backs the Democrats, only about 30% or so back the Republicans. What is it about the Democratic Party which makes it an attractive choice for Indian Americans?
Sure. Yeah, I think the Democratic Party historically has been one that's embraced immigrants like Indian Americans. My family came from India in the late 70s, and it was Democratic policies that helped get them a quicker path to citizenship. I think right now a lot of Indian Americans, though, understand that the new wave of Indian American immigrants are unfortunately having to wait 10 or 15 years, and Democrats are putting forth the proposal to try to actually address some of these issues. I'm starting to see some Republicans do so as well. But the other thing is, I think Democrats understand the Indian Americans care a lot about an economy that works for everyone, care a lot about small business, care a lot about making sure our education system has all the funding it needs. And I think the biggest thing is they also understand that when it comes to safety, we need to curb gun violence and do common sense gun violence prevention. And I think that resonates a lot with Indian Americans and just all South Asians in the United States.
So one big issue for Indian Americans, as indeed it is for the rest of the country, is immigration, because Indian Americans really, have a tough time coming there on visas and then converting those visas into green cards if they stay long enough, and then eventually, of course, those green cards into citizenship. How would you speak to those concerns? What could you possibly do to try and address those concerns?
Yeah, first, I think we can do both border security as well as legal immigration. We can do both without having to sacrifice the other. But the problem is that, when the US Senate this past year tried to put forward a proposal on border security, Donald Trump said that he didn't want that to be solved because he wanted to run on it as a political issue. That shows you where his priorities are. I think where my priority is and where a lot of people's priorities are is making sure that people who come here, maybe on H-1B visas, have at least a status change if they're here for long enough. And I want them to be able to get a path to citizenship. My family, we got our green card within 3 to 6 months of coming to the United States back then. And unfortunately, that's just not the same scenario anymore. And so I want to see us actually address that issue head on. And we can still do border security as well. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other.
So every time Americans are asked, are they feeling better off than they were 4 years ago economically, most of them seem to suggest that they're not feeling better off from 4 years ago, even though the top line numbers, the jobs numbers, the economy, the stock markets, they're all doing really well. But average Americans are not feeling the economy doing well for them. And that seems to be a big Achilles heel for the Democrats, for the incumbent White House. And Kamala Harris is very much part of the incumbent White House. How would you speak to that concern?
I would say that I served in the second term of the White House under President Obama. We left the Trump administration with a great economy. And what happened was Trump, partially due to COVID, left Joe Biden with a very terrible economy. It was essentially a recession. Businesses were closing down. And Donald Trump was not helping really. But when Joe Biden got elected, he inherited a tough situation. He passed an infrastructure bill. He passed a recovery bill. He passed bills to increase manufacturing. These things take a long time. If you pass the bill to increase manufacturing in America, that manufacturing plant won't get built for 3 or 4 years at least. Sometimes longer. And so you won't see the fruits of that labor for a long time. What I am starting to see is the Federal Reserve is cutting interest rates now, and we're actually starting to see a recovery, but it's not hitting Main Street yet, and it won't until next year. I think the next president, whoever it is, will actually take credit for some of the policies that were passed and some of the recovery that's starting to naturally happen. But there's more to do, like addressing rising costs, addressing supply chain issues. There's a lot to do still, and so that everyday people can actually feel like they're economically empowered and that they can start a business, or that they're having access to a thriving job market. I think we need to make sure that we have policies in place so that everyone can have an economy that works for them.
And finally, one of the things that we've seen is a larger number of women are voting this time, not just compared to 2020, but even compared to the men who are voting this time. And the prevalent feeling is that that's because abortion is such an emotional issue, such a resonant issue for women. Do you think that this is going to be the vote determining issue in this election, that this is the one issue and this is the one sort of voter class that's really going to make the difference, that's going to be the swing constituency between who wins and who loses?
Sure. The reason I call it reproductive freedom is on the ballot, and it is so, such a hot topic right now, is because it's an existential threat to women's bodily autonomy. And so, when you think of abortion, some people may say, well, it's an irresponsible teenager that doesn't want to have their kid. But what's actually happened is women are actually dying because they are being denied reproductive care. And there was a woman more recently who unfortunately had a miscarriage and was not treated because the doctors were afraid of being prosecuted as criminals. And so she was not treated. She had to go home. She ended up dying. And this has happened several times now in states that have banned abortion. And so I think what people want is federal action to protect women in those situations, protect reproductive freedom, and protect access to IVF, in vitro fertilization, so people can actually have kids, and people can also have access to contraceptives so we can prevent abortions, right? But all that's being banned in certain states like Alabama. And so what we want to do is actually just do something common sense, which is protect reproductive freedom in America.
All right, so Suhas Subramanyam, thank you very much for your time and your perspective, and good luck for your election fight in the Congressional District of Virginia. Thank you.